So here we are again on another one of our lovely Viva Connection sessions. These are our little taster sessions for our upcoming 2019 Viva event, our fifth Viva event in Spain. And we're running these sessions so that you can meet our speakers. And what we thought would be helpful with these sessions is to ask our speakers a reasonably commonly asked question in the community. We've got a very special guest with us today, Dr. Bill Pettit, and I'm going to hand over the mic now to Sue, who's going to introduce him.
Hi Bill, thanks for being with us, really appreciate it. So Dr. Bill Pettit, board certified in mind-body medicine and currently offering programs sharing the principle alongside but separately with your wife Linda. And we're thrilled
and together. We do both.
And together. Yeah. So our question, Bill, why an understanding of universal mind is vital to our physical health?
Good question.
Easy question for you.
Good question. You know, one of the evolutions, we've got about 15 minutes. Is that what we're
yeah.
Yeah. One of the evolutions, I think, is that people are seeing more clearly that understanding these principles of universal mind, universal thought, universal consciousness. And Sid always said, people want to divide them up. He said, you know, don't do that. They're just a metaphor for the true meaning of God, you know. And if you understand any one sufficiently, you'll have an understanding of the other two. So to me, we're starting, more and more people are seeing that the principles are trying to explain what life is and how it works, you know, and it's not telling people what to do. I think people sometimes get confused with the principles, that they think they tell people how they should live their lives, and they don't. The principles are explaining to you how life works. Now, I see why people get that misunderstanding, because the more understanding you have of how something works, it does affect what you do. So, like when a child, we've got an 18-month-old grandson right now, or I guess 20-month-old, he still has a sippy cup because he doesn't understand gravity enough that when you're through drinking it, you put it on something where it won't spill, you know. And so to the degree somebody doesn't know that, they need a sippy cup, because otherwise you're constantly making messes by letting go of your coffee cup out here and then wondering why it's splashing all over. Before I understood that the system, to the ever degree, and we've talked about it as we were preparing, whatever degree that I see, and I don't claim that it's that much over the last 36 years, but I would say it's been incremental every 6 months over the last 6 years. My life internally has become more gentle. And that's a nice thing. And I'd always tell people direction is the key. I think we get impatient and we start comparing ourselves with where we think somebody else is understanding more than we are, instead of just being grateful, as Sid often said, being grateful for whatever we see ourselves, because gratitude will always carry us forward. So the reason it's vital, I think we were kidding about before about it not being rocket science. I don't think there's anybody that wouldn't say that if we're more at peace, we're probably, our body is going to be generally healthier than if we're constantly stressed. You know, and you can go into the science of it. You can go into Bruce Lipton, who's the cell biologist, who says, you know, we're made of 50 trillion cells. And whatever we get caught up in stressful thinking, we are sending signals that affect the functioning of 50 trillion cells in our body. Well, okay, that makes, now I can either get frightened by that, or I can be glad that I have that information and know that I have a free will, that when my thoughts begin to trouble my soul or lead me away from a place of gentleness, of well-being, I don't have to think of that consciously, that I'm affecting 50 trillion cells in a way that's not healthy. But if I know that's how the system works, and that's going to affect every organ system in my body, then I'm less apt to continue it. If I understand the system enough to know that I have a free will, of that I can leave my thinking alone and get back in my life as best as I can and be present, and the system is built to go back to a healthier state. So to me, it makes sense. It just makes sense I think all of us have experienced that when we're stressed out, we're much more likely to get a bad cold. We're much more likely to have some part of our body ache. We're much more likely to start having trouble sleeping because we're pouring noradrenaline and cortisol and glucose into our system, and it's going to affect our sleep pattern. Psychologically, we're going to notice a drop in our mood. And if we don't catch it at that point, when we're feeling like getting serious about everything, that's one of my first clues, is that when I'm getting serious, I know that if I haven't laughed by noon and had to hold my belly, I'm taking life way, way too seriously. But when I forget that, the next thing that happens is not only is my mood down a little bit, but I'm suddenly being irritable with people, even people that I really love. So I noticed the last couple of days an earlier sign that I hadn't noticed before, that when I get going too fast, I don't listen to people very well. Whether it's on a webinar or whether it's Linda having something that she wants to tell me that she feels is important. So when I catch myself not listening very well, I know that I'm headed in a direction that I don't want to. I used to have to wait until I crashed into the mountain to know that I was off track. I had to wait till I was flat on my back with back spasm, having to take Valium and muscle relaxants. Now, here's what's amazing. I'm going to be 77 in 2 months. I had 2 bulging discs 35 years ago that I was constantly, intermittently, 3 or 4 times a year, flat on my back for 4 or 5 days at a time. Hasn't happened for quite a few years. Why? Because I'm not pulling on those muscles with all my stressful thinking. One of the things that I think is amazing is the study that was done and funded by Bill and Melinda Gates, for all 195 countries. It was published in the Lancet, in the British Lancet, in 2016. They studied the morbidity and mortality of 195 countries in the world. Now, I won't go into it, but the mortality data shows that people in the richer countries die of, cancers and heart disease and stuff like that, whereas in the really poorer countries, they die of malnutrition, childbirth, not enough vitamins and things. But what's interesting when it comes to disability, worldwide, generally people are living a little longer, but the length of time that's increasing is not healthy, productive time. It's disabled time, where they're barely able to function. And in all 195 countries, either 1, 2, or 3 cause is neck and back pain. Because people don't hear it as information. They haven't been taught yet that it's information to leave their thinking alone, that muscle tightness, that discomfort, that dis-ease whenever we're feeling it, first of all, it's part of life, as we were talking about earlier. There's gonna be times that we're not gonna feel good. But the more that we're okay with that's part of life, it'll pass as much as it can. It'll pass as much as it can. And I've had many people that had severe chronic pain that they were even on opiates for, that as they got a more profound state of inner peace, they ended up to where they were taking occasional Tylenols. Now, they had the same process in their body, but their reaction to the thoughts that got triggered about that internal experience became very, very different. I have to tell a story because it's come to me, and then I'll bring it to an end. Is that okay? My son, who's now 42, he's wonderful. He has 2 sets of twins, twin girls 5.5, twin boys 3.5. They drove 1,600 miles recently and visited us for 4.5 days, and then drove 1,600 miles back to Hastings. I told him he needed a psychiatric evaluation, but they're wonderful. He and his wife are wonderful, and these kids are, well, our house was full of energy for those 5 days. Okay? But when he was 9, he's 42 now, when he was 9 years old, or 8 years old, 7 or 8 years old, my grandmother, who was in her 80s, she lived to be 99 and a half. And people would try to convince her, and I won't go into her life history, that she had a really hard life. And she just didn't get it. She said, I had a really full life. I've had a really full life. They try to list all these traumas that she should be traumatized. And she said, well, it's been busy. It's been full. So we go fishing, and we're coming back from fishing, and we ran out of drinks. And so we've got about a 20-minute ride back to town. There's nothing in between there in northwest Iowa. And my son, Dan, who's about 7 years old, he starts going, I'm thirsty. I'm thirsty. I'm thirsty. Right now, I'm trying to maintain some civility here, but I say a couple of times, Danny, I know we're going to be there, and it continues. So I'm ready to pull off the road and just have a heart-to-heart talk, listen, but also a heart-to-heart talk after I've listened. And before I could do that, his grandmother, who was close to 90 at the time, 88, I think she was, she looked at him and she spoke not from judgment, but from her heart. And she said to Danny, she said, Danny, it's okay to be thirsty. Very simple. From the heart, though. You know, I love that Hebrew saying that words that are spoken from the heart reach the heart. Dan will tell you to this day, those words changed his life forever. They changed his life forever. He said, Dad, I heard much more than what Grandma said. I heard what she was pointing to. I heard that there's going to be times I'm going to be thirsty. There's times I'm going to be tired. There's times I'm going to have pain. There's times things aren't going to be the way I want them to be. And that's okay. It's part of the rhythm of life. Now, wow. But that came from Grandma, from a loving place. She wasn't judging. She wasn't angry at Danny. He said, all I felt from her was love, and her wanting me to not be so much at the mercy of the fact that I was thirsty. Anyway, I'm going to end on that. I hope we've answered your question. I did the best I could.
It was amazing, Bill. Thank you. Yeah,
really beautiful.
Okay, good.
We're not going to prolong the conversation because we can do that. We've already proved before this that we can do that really easily. just want to say thank you so much for coming to Viva.
Yeah.
So excited to have you.
We're going to be excited to be there. We're going to be excited. Yeah. And we're going to make sure that we have a couple of days before or after to just enjoy your beautiful scene.
Good.
Yes, lovely.
Hang out with the people at Viva as well. We hope that's part and parcel of it. Yeah.
I mean, that's everything we've heard is just that it's wonderful. The whole feeling level is wonderful.
And we just make sure as well during the event that you don't get worn out, because you can just have the whole afternoon for a siesta, 3 days in a row.
There you go. Good.
So,
Yes, good.
Yeah.
Thank you so
very
much.
much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.